The metal carrier broke through the clouds like a burning comet, falling faster than any human body should survive. Inside the crashed pod, a girl lay unconscious, her body shaking every time the pod hit another layer of the atmosphere. Her name was Mira, and today she was supposed to return home. Instead, she was falling toward death. The pod hit the alien ground with a heavy crash, sliding over mud, rocks, and thick purple grass before finally stopping. Silence followed. Not even the wind dared to whisper. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the pod door popped open with a faint hiss. A weak hand pushed the door aside. Mira crawled out, coughing, her throat dry, her head ringing like someone had hammered her skull. She wiped mud from her eyes and looked around. She expected rescue ships. She expected her team. She expected home. But what she saw was something else. A massive, endless forest of twisted black trees rose around her, their roots sharp like claws. Strange blue fog rolled between them. The sky above was green instead of blue. Everything here felt wrong, alive, watching her. Mira staggered to her feet. Her hand reached automatically to her waist where her survival gear should have been. Nothing. She checked her pockets. Empty. Then she remembered the last thing she was told on the ship. Emergency landing. Brace yourself. But the voice had been too calm, too controlled, too practiced. Her heart sank as she realized this was not an accident. Her eyes scanned the ground until she found a small cloth bag half buried under fallen leaves. She picked it up and opened it. Inside was her only supply, a dull metal knife. No food, no water, no communicator, no medical kit. Just a knife that couldn't even cut soft fruit. For a long second, Mira didn't move. Then she laughed quietly, a sad, bitter laugh. "So this is how you send me home," she whispered, "by throwing me away." The forest didn't answer, but something inside it growled. A deep, shaking growl that rattled her bones. Mira gripped the dull knife. She felt stupid, weak, betrayed, but weakness would not help her. Not here, not now. She forced her legs to move. Every step sank into dark mud that smelled like rotten metal. Strange vines wrapped around her boots as if trying to pull her down. The trees seemed to twist when she wasn't looking at them. This planet was alive, hungry, and she was the only warm body around. Her breath grew heavy as she pushed forward. The air tasted sharp, like breathing in tiny needles. Her chest burned, then she heard it. Crack, a branch snapped behind her. She turned quickly. Nothing but the forest had changed. The fog was thicker, the shadows deeper. Something was following her. She started walking faster. Crack. Another step behind her. Mira's heart pounded. She gripped the knife so tight her knuckles went white. The blade was dull, but it was all she had. She began to run. Branches whipped her face. Her boots slipped on wet roots. The forest echoed with growls, whispers, footsteps. Every sound came from behind her, until suddenly she stepped into silence. A clearing, a small circular space surrounded by tall black trees. Purple grass swayed in a strange wind, and in the center of the clearing stood a massive stone pillar covered in glowing symbols. The symbols pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Mira swallowed hard. She didn't know if she should get closer or run away, but behind her the footsteps were returning. Louder, faster, she had no choice. She moved toward the stone pillar. She touched its surface. It felt warm, almost alive. The symbols flared brighter. A deep hum vibrated through the ground. Then she saw it. Far beyond the clearing, a thin pillar of smoke rising in the forest. Human smoke, alien smoke, a trap, a signal she didn't know. But she knew one thing: smoke meant fire, and fire meant shelter or danger. Either way, it was better than being hunted blind. She turned to move toward the smoke, but froze. Two glowing eyes stared at her from between the trees. Mira's breath caught. The creature stepped forward just enough for her to see its outline, a beast taller than a man, covered in bone-like armor plates. Its claws sank deep into the muddy ground, its breath steamed in the cold air. It didn't roar, it didn't attack, it simply stared at her like it was studying her, as if deciding whether she was prey or something more. Mira didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't move. The creature leaned forward, sniffing the air. A small wind blew. It carried the smell of smoke from the distant forest, and the beast stepped back. It feared the smoke. Mira felt hope for the first time. Smoke, fire, heat. The creature avoided them. She looked again at the distant smoke pillar. "Fine," she whispered. "If that's what keeps you away, then that's where I go." She backed away slowly, eyes locked with the beast's glowing gaze. Step by step, she moved until her back touched the warm stone pillar. The creature did not follow. Finally, when she was far enough, she turned and began to run, this time toward the smoke. The forest seemed to push against her, branches grabbing her clothes, roots tripping her feet, but she kept moving. She had no food, no shelter, no supplies, just a knife so dull it was almost a joke. And yet she felt something else rising inside her, not fear, not panic, determination. The forest roared behind her as the creature let out a warning growl. It would wait. It would follow her scent. It would come again at night. But now she knew one thing: smoke was her shield. She only needed to survive until morning. She only needed to reach the place where the smoke rose. And if someone was there, if someone built that fire, maybe she wouldn't be alone, or maybe she was running into another trap. Either way, she had no other choice. She kept running until the purple fog swallowed the clearing behind her. The forest grew darker, the air colder. She pushed forward, breath shaking, legs trembling. But she kept going. The dull knife bounced against her leg with every step, and Mira whispered to herself, as much a promise to herself as a warning to anyone watching her. If they wanted me dead, they will regret not finishing the job. Ahead of her, the smoke rose higher. Behind her, the creature followed, and above her, the green sky flashed with lightning that felt almost alive. Mira didn't know she was taking the first steps of a legend. A legend no one planned. A legend no one expected. A legend born not from power, but from survival. Mira pushed through the forest until her breath tasted like metal and her legs felt as heavy as stone. The smoke column she had seen earlier now rose higher, turning darker as the sky dimmed into a deep alien green. Shadows stretched long, and the wind whispered through twisted trees like voices speaking in a language she couldn't understand. She forced herself to keep walking. Her dull knife bounced against her hip. Her heartbeat echoed in her skull. When she finally reached the source of the smoke, she stopped. There was no campfire, no shelter, no people. The smoke came from a burned tree trunk, a hollow stump that had caught fire naturally after lightning struck it, so there was no survivor, no base, no one waiting for her, just a dying ember of nature. But smoke was smoke, and she needed it. Her body trembled as she sank to her knees beside the stump. The warmth felt like comfort, even if it was weak. She held her hands close to the glowing embers, letting heat crawl into her fingers. For the first time since she fell to this planet, she let herself breathe just a little, but peace did not last long. The forest behind her went silent, not quiet, silent. Every insect glow faded, every leaf stopped moving. Even the wind froze. Mira lifted her head. Breath shallow, something was out there, something big. She grabbed her dull knife with both hands even though she knew it wouldn't help. She turned slowly, eyes sweeping across the dark forest. Then she heard it. A soft, heavy exhale, not from behind her, not from the trees, from above. Her eyes shot upward. Half hidden in the tree branches stood a creature with long limbs, bone-like plates, and glowing cracks across its chest. It wasn't the stalker she saw earlier. This one was smaller, leaner, but just as deadly. Its long claws dripped with black resin. Its eyes were wide and bright yellow, locked directly onto her. It hissed softly like steam escaping a broken machine. Mira froze. She knew the rules of predatory creatures: don't run, don't scream, don't challenge. So she lowered her knife slowly and bowed her head, not in defeat but in understanding. The creature shifted, unsure. Smoke trickled from the stump beside her, and just like the larger beast before, this one stepped back. Fear. Again, the creatures feared smoke. Even this little stump, even these dying embers were enough to make the predator nervous. A spark of hope flickered inside her chest. Maybe she could build something bigger, stronger, smarter, but she couldn't do it out in the open. The stump would burn out soon. She needed a better shelter, somewhere she could stay alive through the night. Her eyes scanned the area. Beyond the stump, the ground dipped into a shallow slope leading to a rocky wall lined with cracks and holes. Nature made hiding places. A cave. Small, dark, probably full of insects, but still a cave. She moved quickly toward it, whispering to the smoking stump as if it were a friend, "Please keep burning a little longer." She reached the cave entrance. It was barely large enough for her to crawl in. Inside was pitch black and smelled like cold stone and old moisture. Perfect. With trembling hands, she grabbed 2 broken branches, carried a handful of hot coals from the stump, and placed them inside the cave entrance. The smoke curled upward, forming a faint curtain. The predator in the tree hissed again, angry or confused, she couldn't tell, but it didn't follow. Not yet. Mira crawled deeper into the cave. The darkness surrounded her like a blanket. She sat down, hugging her arms to her knees. The first night began. The sounds of the planet as the sky darkened to near black, the forest came alive with noise. Screeches echoed like metal tearing. Something pounded far away, maybe a giant creature walking. Something chattered in the branches above the cave, clicking like bones tapping together. Mira pressed her back against the cold stone and listened. She needed to stay awake. She needed to stay quiet. She needed to survive the night. Hours passed. The smoke from the embers thinned, no longer strong enough to fill the whole cave mouth. Mira bit her lip. If the smoke died, she would die too. Her mind raced. She couldn't let the fire go out. She crawled out slowly, keeping her head low, grabbing more branches, dried leaves, anything she could find. She carried them back inside the cave and built a tiny ring of stones around the embers. Then she tried to spark a flame. 2 rocks, rough hands, tired arms. She struck again and again. Sparks jumped, then died. Her fingers bled, but she kept going. Finally, a tiny flame caught. It devoured the dry leaves hungrily. Smoke curled upward again. Relief washed over her like warm water. Her arms shook, but she smiled. This time she wouldn't let the smoke go out. This smoke was her shield. She slowly backed toward the deeper part of the cave, but as she did, her boot hit something soft, something that moved. Her blood froze. She turned. A small creature lay curled in the corner. It looked like a rabbit crossed with a lizard, 4 legs, scales instead of fur, but soft eyes. It blinked up at her, terrified but weak. It wasn't dangerous, it was hurt. Part of Mira wanted to throw it out. She didn't need another mouth near her camp. But another part, the human part, refused. She moved slowly, lowered her knife, and held out her hand. "It's okay," she whispered. The creature's breathing was fast and shallow. Its hind leg was twisted unnaturally. She hesitated. She could kill it for food. It would solve her hunger for a day. But the creature reminded her of herself, thrown into danger, injured, terrified, alone. She couldn't do it. Instead, Mira gently used the dull knife to scrape moss from the wall, mixing it with water from a dripping stalactite. She applied it to the creature's leg like a paste. It squeaked softly but didn't fight. She wrapped it in a torn piece of her clothing. The cave felt a little less lonely. The night visitor hours later, as Mira dozed lightly, a sound outside made her eyes snap open. Heavy breathing, slow steps. Wet, dragging claws, the stalker, the huge armored creature she saw earlier. Its presence shook the ground outside. Mira crawled to the cave entrance and whispered to the smoldering fire, "Don't die on me now." The flames glowed gently. Smoke rose slowly. Outside, the stalker sniffed again, growled low. In silence, Mira's heart pounded. Either it left or it was waiting. Minutes passed, maybe an hour, then she heard it scratch, scratch, scratch. The stalker was drawing circles in the dirt around her cave, marking it, claiming it, not as prey, no, as territory. It was warning others, "Stay away, this is mine." A strange mix of fear and triumph filled Mira's chest. She wasn't safe far from it, but she had been judged, not prey, not threat, something in between. The creature's footsteps faded. Mira leaned back, letting the tension leave her muscles. She wasn't sure why, but she whispered to the empty darkness, "Thank you." The only reply was the crackle of small flames. The creature returns near dawn. Mira woke to soft tugging at her sleeve. She reached for the knife but relaxed when she saw the tiny injured creature nudging her hand with its nose. It wasn't afraid of her anymore. It climbed into her lap, its scaled body warm and surprisingly light. Mira ran a tired hand over its head. "Looks like we're both stuck here," she whispered. But something outside made her stop. Footsteps. Again, but lighter this time, faster, more than one. She peeked through a crack in the cave wall. 3 smaller predators circled the area, the same kind that watched her from the trees earlier. They smelled the creature in her lap. Food. One of them stepped toward the cave entrance, lowering its head. Mira's muscles tensed. The smoke wasn't strong enough to stop them this time. She grabbed a burning branch, held it like a sword, and stood tall. "You want something?" she whispered. "Come take it." Her voice was steady, her legs were not. The creature hissed and stepped back, only for the others to move in closer. Mira swung the branch. The flames roared, the smoke burst outward. The predators shrieked and ran. Mira stood shaking, clutching the charred branch with both hands. She had done it. She didn't know if she would survive the next night or the next, but she had lived through this one. Alone, with nothing but a dull knife, a small fire, and a will stronger than fear. She sat down, letting the injured creature curl into her side. Morning light slowly crawled into the forest, and Mira whispered, "Tonight I build something better." Tomorrow, survival would change. Tomorrow, she wouldn't just live, she would begin to fight. The smoke pit, her greatest idea, was about to begin. Morning broke slowly on the alien world. The sky shifted from sickly green to pale yellow, like someone had painted the horizon with fading colors. Mira stepped out of the cave and breathed in the cold morning air. Her muscles ached, her throat was dry, and her clothes were stiff from dried mud. But she was alive. She had survived the first night. The small injured creature, her only friend on this world, limped behind her gently, staying close. Mira had named it Nib, because of the tiny nib-like teeth it had used to nibble her sleeve. "Come on, Nib," she whispered with a tired smile. "We need a place that can't be attacked every minute." Nib made a small chirping sound in reply. Mira knew the cave wasn't safe for long. The predators had found her scent. The stalker had marked the territory, and the smoke from the tiny fire hadn't been enough to hold back all threats. She needed something better, smarter, and she had one idea that might save her life. A smoke pit, not a fire pit, not a simple campfire, but a controlled hidden structure that produced thick smoke enough to confuse predators, mask her scent, and give her time to plan. She had seen the larger predator fear smoke. She had seen the smaller ones flee from it. Smoke was her weapon. Searching for the right spot, she began searching the forest for a proper area to build. The ground needed to be soft enough to dig, but not too wet. The air needed to carry the smoke upward but not scatter it too far, and she needed shelter from the wind. After an hour of searching, she found it, a shallow depression beneath 2 large, fallen tree trunks, one rotten, one solid. The area formed a natural half-circle, almost like nature had built the foundation for her. "This will work," Mira whispered. Nib sniffed the rotten log and sneezed loudly. Mira laughed for the first time. She knelt and examined the soil. It was dark and slightly damp, but not swamp-like. Easy to dig, good for insulation. She put down her dull knife and began working with her bare hands. Her fingers dug into the earth, pulling out roots, scooping dirt, clearing the space. She created a circular pit about 1/2 meter deep. Sweat dripped down her forehead as she worked endlessly, fingers stiff and muddy. Her stomach growled loudly. She ignored it. Survival was more important than hunger. Her base came first. With the hole ready, she picked up her knife and began to carve stones from the surrounding area. The blade wasn't sharp enough to cut clean lines, but she managed to wedge rocks loose using the dull edge and leverage. Those rocks became the foundation walls of her pit. The dull knife, once a joke, became her most valuable tool. The secret of the pit. After hours of work, she sat back, exhausted. The pit was deep and lined with stones, but it needed one more thing: air tunnels. She started carving small horizontal paths from the pit outward, thin tunnels that would pull oxygen inside, feeding the fire without producing flames. Only thick smoke, cold smoke, defensive smoke. She used a broken branch to push soil aside, shaping the tunnels carefully. Nib lay on a rock, watching her with curious eyes. At one point, the creature hopped into the pit and sniffed around. "Don't fall in," Mira warned. Nib chirped and jumped out immediately. The tunnels were done. The pit was ready. Now she needed fuel, something that burned slowly. She walked to the forest's edge and searched for the black, sticky fungus she had seen earlier on fallen trees. It smelled horrible, but when touched with fire, it produced dark smoke. She collected handfuls of it, coughing from the smell. Back at the pit, she layered dry leaves, the fungus, and small branches. She then placed the last glowing coals she had saved from the cave gently into the center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a thin wisp of smoke curled upward. It grew thicker, darker, heavier. Mira's lips curved into a smile of victory. "This is it," she whispered. "We're going to live." The first test, the smoke pit, worked beautifully, but Mira needed to see if it would truly protect her. So she waited. Hours passed as she watched the smoke rise and spread through the air. It was thick enough to coat the area in a misty haze, but not enough to choke her. Nib stayed close to her feet, sometimes hiding behind her boots when the wind shifted. Then it happened. A predator appeared, not one of the smaller ones, but a new kind. This one crawled on 6 legs, skin shiny like polished metal with long antennae that twitched aggressively. It moved like a scorpion mixed with a wolf. Mira froze. The creature stopped at the edge of the smoke-filled area. Its antennae twitched rapidly. It hissed loudly. Then slowly, step by step, it turned around and walked away. Mira exhaled deeply, her hands shaking with relief. "It works," she whispered. "It really works." Gathering supplies for the rest of the day, Mira gathered all the materials she could find to strengthen her new shelter. Heavy checkmark, fern-like leaves for insulation. Heavy checkmark, thick tree bark for covering the pit. Heavy checkmark, more fungus for smoke. Heavy checkmark, sharp stones to make traps. Heavy checkmark, hollow vines to store water. Nib followed happily, sometimes running ahead to sniff out useful plants. Once, Nib even alarmed her to a dangerous red flower that exploded into dust when touched, likely poisonous. "Good job, little one," Mira said, lifting the creature carefully. By evening, Mira had everything she needed. She built a dome-like structure over the pit using branches and bark, leaving gaps for smoke to escape but hiding the fire inside. Then she dug a sleeping hollow near the pit, lined it with leaves. The place was transforming into a real base. More importantly, she created 3 small traps around the clearing, simple tripwire alarms using brittle branches and stones. Enough to warn her. Not enough to kill anything. She wasn't a killer, not yet. The night arrives again. By the time night fell, the smoke was spreading evenly. Mira sat next to the pit, holding Nib on her lap, watching the horizon darken. The forest began its nightly chorus of screams and growls, but this time something was different. The creatures did not come close. They circled far away. They hissed from a distance, but they did not approach. Her smoke pit was working. The ground trembled suddenly. Boom, 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 not footsteps, no, something heavier. Mira looked up sharply, her pulse racing. A huge shadow emerged from the fog. The stalker, but it didn't attack, didn't roar, didn't move closer. It stopped just at the smoke's edge. Its glowing eyes stared at Mira. She felt fear crawl up her spine, but she didn't look away. Slowly, the stalker lowered its head. Not a bow, something else. Acknowledgement, respect. Then it stepped back into the forest and disappeared. Mira collapsed to her knees, breath shaking. Nib chirped loudly as if celebrating. "Yeah," she whispered, wiping sweat from her forehead. "We made it through another night." The discovery under the tree, but the night wasn't done with surprises. Just before dawn, as the smoke drifted across the forest floor, Mira noticed something shining under the rotten log she had ignored earlier. Curious, she crawled over and dug around the base. Her fingers hit metal, a small box, buried deep, old, rust-eaten. She pulled it out and wiped the dirt away. The box had strange symbols on it, similar to the glowing carving she saw on the stone pillar in the clearing. Her heartbeat quickened. She opened it. Inside were heavy checkmark, a thin metal plate, heavy checkmark, a glass-like shard, heavy checkmark, a circular device with 2 buttons, heavy checkmark, and a folded note. She unfolded the note slowly. The writing was in her language. She froze. Someone had been here before. A human, and they left a message. It said only 3 words: trust the smoke. Mira's breath caught. Someone had survived on this world long before her. Someone who learned the same secret. Someone who may have left clues. She closed the box, her hands trembling with excitement and fear. "Nib," she whispered, "I'm not the first one here." The small creature chirped in confusion. Mira stood up slowly, looking out at the smoke pit she had built, her first real victory on this hostile world. Tomorrow she would search for more signs, more clues, more hidden truths. But tonight she whispered to the forest, "This is my ground now." And the smoke rose like a crown over her new domain. Morning came quietly but not gently. The forest did not sing or whisper, it simply watched. Mira stepped out of her shelter, stretching her sore back. Nib trotted beside her in short, excited hops. The smoke pit behind them released slow waves of gray mist drifting through the trees like lazy ghosts. Mira breathed in deeply, letting the cold air fill her lungs. Every breath hurt a little, but it also reminded her she was still alive. Yesterday she had found something impossible, a human box buried under an alien tree, and inside it a message: trust the smoke. Those 3 words had not left her mind. Someone had been here before her. Someone human, someone who survived long enough to leave a clue. That fact changed everything. The search begins. Mira took the metal plate and strange glass shard from the box and placed them carefully in a small pouch she made from bark. They might have been useless, or they might be the most important tools she'd ever found. Nib chirped when she tied the pouch to her waist. "You're right," Mira whispered. "We need to know who left these behind." She grabbed her dull knife and stepped deeper into the forest. The morning air was thick with fog. Blue light filtered through canopy leaves shaped like giant claws. The ground felt soft under her boots, almost breathing. Mira stayed low as she walked, scanning the forest floor. She needed tracks, broken branches, old fires, anything human. Nib kept close, sometimes running ahead to sniff the ground, sometimes hiding behind her legs when shadows moved. The deeper they went, the stranger the forest became. Trees were taller, bent sideways like they were reaching toward something unseen. Their trunks were marked with deep scratches, too high for the smaller predators. Something big had passed through here. Maybe the stalker, maybe something worse. Mira swallowed and kept moving. An old trail. After nearly an hour, Mira stopped suddenly. Something caught her eye, a faint footprint half buried under moss. She knelt, brushing it gently with her hand. It was shaped like a boot, a human boot. Her pulse quickened. The print was old, edges softened, filled with dirt, but it was real. Nib sniffed it and sneezed. Mira smiled weakly. "Yes, I know, it smells like hope." She followed the direction of the footprint and soon found more signs. Heavy checkmark, snapped branches at shoulder height, heavy checkmark, a stone arranged unnaturally, heavy checkmark, dried scorch marks on a tree, heavy checkmark, and a piece of rusted metal half melted into the soil. Someone had built something here long ago. A camp, a signaling device, a shelter, or a grave. She pushed forward, scanning everything. Then between 2 bending trees she found it. The ruins, a collapsed structure, lay hidden under thick vines. The walls were made of metal plates welded together by someone with skill. Moss covered everything and large claw marks had torn through the roof. Mira approached slowly. Nib hissed softly, warning her. "It's okay," she whispered, though she wasn't sure. She stepped through the broken entrance. Inside, she found heavy checkmark, an overturned table, heavy checkmark, shattered glass, heavy checkmark, a broken water purifier, heavy checkmark, metal containers crushed flat, heavy checkmark, and strange scratch marks covering the walls. Something had attacked this place. The human who lived here fought something. Maybe survived. Maybe didn't. A cold shiver crawled up Mira's spine. She walked to what looked like a bed frame made from metal rods. Something lay on the ground next to it. A thin metal device shaped like a small tablet. She lifted it. It flickered weakly when touched. Her breath caught. "Please work," she whispered. The device glowed faintly, then projected a dim hologram. Just one image, a face. A man with short hair, tired eyes, and scars on his cheeks. He looked like someone who had been fighting for years. His voice crackled through the broken speaker. "If you're seeing this, you're not from here. My name is Corvin Hale. I survived alone for 189 days. If you want to live, trust the smoke." Mira's heart pounded. Corvin continued. "The creatures fear smoke, but not fire. They fear scent, not heat. You must learn how to make it strong, thick, and cold. Do not use flames. They attract the large ones." Mira listened closely. Corvin's voice grew weaker. "If you're human, I hope you escaped. If you're like me, I hope you're stronger." The hologram died. The silence in the ruined shelter was thick. Mira lowered the device slowly. The man had survived here almost 200 days. He had fought. He had learned the secrets of the planet. He had left a warning. She felt both inspired and terrified. Nib curled against her boot, sensing her sadness. "We're not alone, Nib," Mira whispered. "Not in the way we thought." The mark of the hunter. As Mira explored the shelter, she found a wall covered with deep gouges. She touched one of the cuts. The shape was familiar. The stalker's claw, large, three-pointed, strong. "The stalker attacked here," she murmured. "But why didn't it destroy everything? Some areas were untouched, some containers still sealed, some metal sheets pulled aside, not smashed, as if the stalker was not trying to kill the human but trying to force him out, to chase him, to test him, to stalk him. Is that what it's doing to me?" Mira whispered. "Testing me." The thought made her skin crawl, but she didn't feel hunted right now. She felt watched. The message on the wall near the back of the shelter, hidden behind broken crates. Mira found something scratched into metal with a sharp tool. Words, human words. "They are smarter than you think. Stay low, no bright light, no loud noises. Build the pit. The pit is life. The pit is death to them." And at the bottom, one final message they want you to learn. Mira felt a chill run through her spine. Who were they? The creatures, the stalker, or something else? Another line was scratched deeper than the rest. "They are studying you." Nib chirped nervously and hid behind her leg. Mira stepped back, suddenly feeling like she was being watched from every angle. The shelter seemed to close in on her, the walls shrinking, the shadows moving. She grabbed the metal tablet and left the structure quickly. Outside, the forest felt too quiet, too still. Mira looked at Nib and whispered, "We need to get back to the pit." The chase. She turned toward her smoke-filled shelter and began walking fast. The air felt heavier, thicker, as if someone were holding their breath. Something snapped behind her, a branch, then another. Mira grabbed Nib and ran. The forest exploded behind her with angry screeches. Leaves flew, birds scattered. Something huge burst through the underbrush like a living boulder. Mira didn't turn around, but she felt the tremor of powerful footsteps. She sprinted, jumping over roots, pushing through branches, ignoring the pain slicing into her arms. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed, but she kept running. The smoke pit was close. She could see the faint haze rising through the trees. "Almost," she gasped. A shadow leaped behind her. She dove forward, rolling into the smoky clearing. Nib tumbled with her. Creature behind her roared. A sound so loud Mira felt it shake her ribs, but it didn't enter the smoke. It skidded to a halt at the smoke's edge, pacing back and forth, snarling. Mira crawled backward, holding Nib tight. Its eyes glowed bright yellow. It was not the stalker. It was another predator, one she had not seen before. Its teeth were long. Its neck spines rose like spears. It wanted her, but the smoke stopped it. After a long minute, it backed away into the forest, vanishing like a nightmare. Mira collapsed beside the pit, breath trembling. Nib snuggled against her chest, shaking. "It's okay," she whispered, rubbing its head gently. "We made it." She looked at the metal tablet in her hand, the message from Corvin Hale playing again in her mind. "If you want to live, trust the smoke." She understood now. The pit wasn't just protection. It was strategy. It was intelligence. It was the thing that made humans different. Smoke was her language of survival. And whoever or whatever was watching her, they were learning too, but she wasn't done learning either. Not yet. Tomorrow she would upgrade the pit. Tomorrow she would search for more clues. Tomorrow she would prepare for the truth behind this planet. But tonight, as the smoke rose in slow, ghostly curls, Mira whispered the words that Corvin had left behind. "Trust the smoke." And the darkness whispered back. The smoke pit whispered through the forest like a silent warning, soft gray waves slipping between the black trees, curling around roots and fallen branches. Mira sat beside it with Nib in her lap, stroking the little creature's head as she watched the fire breathe. Her heart was still racing from the chase earlier. The new predator, the one with neck spines, should never have gotten that close. It should have smelled the smoke earlier. Something wasn't right. The forest felt different today. Air seemed thicker, heavier, as if holding its breath. Mira's eyes scanned the tree line again and again. Nothing moved, nothing called, nothing dared to whisper. Nib lifted its head and chirped softly, sensing her worry. "I know," Mira said quietly. "Something changed." She stood up slowly, stretching her stiff legs. Her clothes were torn from running and her arms were covered in scratches. But her mind was sharp, alert. She had survived this long because she noticed everything, every shift, every pattern, every sound. Today's silence wasn't natural, it was intentional. The first sign, Mira walked the perimeter of her smoky clearing, checking each trap she'd set the day before. Bark alarms, stone rattlers, vine tripwires, all untouched. She didn't know if that comforted her or terrified her. Usually by morning at least one trap sprung from curious creatures, but today nothing. Nib followed close behind, ears alert. Mira kneeled beside the smoke pit and looked at the sky through a break in the trees. A dark storm was gathering, the first storm she'd seen on this world. Thick swirling clouds, a purple streak of lightning, a distant rumble that didn't sound like thunder. Storms could kill, but storms could also hide her. She considered staying inside her shelter until it passed, but something made her hesitate. Her mind replayed Corvin Hale's message in her memory. They are smarter than you think. They study you. They want you to learn. What if the silence wasn't from fear of the smoke? What if something bigger was coming? Mira stood up. She felt watched. The symbol in the trees while walking the eastern edge of the clearing, something strange caught her eye, a deep scratch on a tree trunk. She walked over and brushed her fingers across it. Her breath caught. It wasn't a claw mark. It was a symbol, a triangle shape carved with precision. Mira frowned. This wasn't here yesterday. She moved to the next tree. Another triangle and the next and the next, 10 trees forming a circle around her base. Nib hissed softly, backing away from the pattern. Mira's pulse quickened. Someone or something had marked her home. The stalker, no, its claws were huge and jagged. These marks were clean, sharp, almost human-made. She stepped back, eyes wide. This is a warning, she said softly, or a message. The triangles pointed inward, toward her smoke pit. Toward her, the storm arrives. The sky darkened rapidly. Wind howled between the trees. The first drops of acid-scented rain fell, sizzling on leaves and stone. Mira ran to her shelter and grabbed every piece of bark she had collected. Nib, inside, she ordered. Nib darted under the shelter as Mira layered bark over the roof, sealing gaps. The smoke pit hissed as rain hit the edges but kept burning. She crouched beside Nib, holding it close as the storm roared. Lightning cracked across the sky, purple, jagged, violent. Thunder boomed so loud she felt it in her chest. For 10 long minutes she sat silently listening. Then she heard it. A second sound under the storm's roar, a howl, long, echoing, angry. Mira's blood turned cold. She peeked out through a gap in the shelter. Through sheets of rain she saw shadows moving at the forest edge. Small shadows, medium shadows, and one massive shape, towering, broad-shouldered, bone-armored. The stalker. Watching the storm, watching her. It didn't enter the clearing, it didn't run, it simply waited. Nib trembled in her arms. Mira whispered, "Why aren't you afraid of the storm?" As if hearing her thought, lightning flashed again, illuminating the creature. For the first time, Mira saw its entire form clearly. It wasn't just huge, it was regal, not a mindless beast, not a simple predator. It was purposeful, controlled, intelligent. The stalker lifted its head slowly, staring straight at her shelter. Mira couldn't breathe. She didn't feel hunted. She felt chosen. The circle closed as hours passed. The storm thinned but did not end. Rain softened, wind quieted, but the shadows remained at the forest's edge. Mira counted them. 1, 2, 3, 7 creatures, 7 predators surrounding her clearing in a perfect circle. None crossed into the smoke. None attacked. None left. Nib pressed against her chest, terrified. Mira's mind raced. This wasn't random. This wasn't instinct. This wasn't a pack hunting. This was formation, structure, organization. "This is a ritual," Mira whispered. "A test." The triangles carved into trees, the silence in the forest, the organized circle. Something was happening, something planned. Mira crawled closer to the smoke pit, letting smoke cling to her body. She scanned the shadows again and noticed something strange. The stalker wasn't circling. It wasn't pacing. It wasn't angry. It was protecting her, as if keeping the other predators away. Mira didn't understand. Why protect her? Why watch her? Why wait? Then she remembered Corvin Hale's message, "They want you to learn." Her throat tightened. Was this a lesson? Was this a trial she had accidentally entered? The smoke test suddenly, a smaller predator lunged toward her clearing, charging through the storm, ignoring its pack, desperate and hungry. Nib squeaked in fear. Mira grabbed her dull knife and stepped in front of Nib, even though her hands were shaking. The creature reached the smoke edge and stopped. It clawed at the air, it snarled, it hissed like it was choking. The smoke was working stronger than ever due to the moist air of the storm. But the creature wasn't giving up. It pushed deeper, closer. Mira's eyes widened. If it crossed the smoke border, she had only her dull knife. She grabbed a burning branch from the pit, swinging it, creating a thick wave of smoke. The creature stumbled back, screeching in pain. Then thud. A massive shadow moved behind it, the stalker. It grabbed the smaller creature by the leg and dragged it into the forest like it weighed nothing. Silence returned. The predators in the circle backed away in fear from the stalker's roar. Nib stared in shock, so did Mira. "The stalker," she whispered, "killed the one that broke the rules." This wasn't random. These creatures weren't a chaotic ecosystem. There were laws here, codes, ranks, punishments. The stalker wasn't hunting her, it was overseeing the test, and she had passed. The approach, now the circle broke apart slowly. One by one, the smaller predators retreated into the shadows, disappearing between the trees, all except the stalker. It stepped into the rain-soaked clearing. Closer, closer. Mira backed toward the smoke pit, holding Nib tight. The creature lowered its head. For a moment, Mira thought it might bow, like before, but instead it extended one massive claw and scraped something into the mud. She stared. It wasn't a symbol, it wasn't random. It was a shape she recognized, a human footprint. Nib chirped in confusion. Mira whispered, voice shaking, "You know what I am." The stalker turned, walked away, and vanished into the forest mist. Mira fell to her knees. This wasn't just survival anymore. She wasn't just another creature in the forest. She was being shaped, guided, prepared. And for the first time, Mira understood she wasn't being hunted. She was being trained.